All right, I think they're just looking. Anything from the state before we bring the jury in?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from defense?
No, thank you.
Anything from the defense at all?
Thank you.
All right, let's bring the jury in. All right, thank you, everyone. May I have a seat? Want to call your next witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Elizabeth Lubinsky.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony given in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Yep, my name is Elizabeth Lubinsky. Last name is Lubinsk.
And what do you do for work?
I'm the chief medical examiner for La Crosse County.
And how long have you done that?
I've been with the medical examiner's office since January 5th of 2019, so a total of 7 years.
And when did you become chief?
That would have been June 27th of 2022.
And specific to that position, what qualifications are necessary to be the medical examiner?
So the qualifications for that specific job is you have to have some form of background in medical, along with you have to take certification courses in regards to specific deaths that you may come upon, such as homicides, suicides, accidents, and you have continuing education that you have to take every 5 years.
Are you required to hold a medical doctor degree?
Not in the state of Wisconsin.
What qualifications related to the medical field do you have?
So currently, I am a licensed critical care paramedic along with a fully licensed firefighter. I've been licensed in EMS since 2014, so 12 years.
Did you work within kind of emergency medicine or paramedic EMS before joining the medical examiner's office in 2019?
I did. I worked pre-hospital and in-hospital, both in an urgent care and emergency room setting, along with in the ambulance service up until I became full-time in 2021.
You mentioned working for the ME's office before you were chief. So are there deputy MEs or assistants that help in that role?
Correct. There's deputy medical examiners who they are on call, and then also chief deputy medical examiner, which I held both positions before becoming chief.
Do you know how many deputies you have on staff right now?
Currently, I have 9 deputies on staff and 1 chief deputy, so a total of 10.
And specific to the chief medical examiner's job, what are the duties of that position?
Yep, so as chief, I oversee the entire office. I have to know about every death that has occurred within La Crosse County, including signing death certificates, cremation permits, and going to scenes and investigating.
Does either yourself or somebody from your office respond to every death scene?
Every death scene that occurs outside of a hospital or nursing home.
No matter the time of day?
No matter the time of day.
Does the call usually go to you first, or is there an on-call schedule?
We do have an on-call schedule, which I am placed on the on-call schedule. So the page usually goes out to them. If it's more of what our office classifies as a high-profile case, we'll get the call first and then call our on-call deputy. But if it's something that seems unnatural, they'll give me a call as well before they get on scene.
When you report to a scene, what are your duties there?
So when we report to scene, our duties is basically the decedent is our responsibility. So we have to do a full body head-to-toe examination. That includes pictures of not only the decedent, but also the scene. We have to obtain information from law enforcement. We have to try and identify cause and manner of death. If needed, we will take a decedent to autopsy, and at that point, we are the eyes and ears for the pathologist.
So sometimes you can determine cause and manner of death without autopsy?
Correct.
And what kind of situations would that happen?
That would happen in situations where you have someone who's elderly, has history of cancer, they have a long medical history, they were feeling sick, and then we would talk with their physician to verify as well.
Who makes the determination about if a body is sent for autopsy?
Ultimately, I am the last say. We will have a discussion between myself and my chief deputy, but I make the determination if they're going to go.
Do you coordinate with law enforcement on that decision?
Sometimes when I'm there with law enforcement, I will tell them what I'm seeing, what I feel. If I feel an autopsy is necessary, if they see something that they feel is necessary, they'll also tell me as well.
Did you respond to the scene of Alexavier Pedron's death on February 11th of 2023?
I did.
Were you the only person from your office present that day?
I was not. We had a newer on-call deputy. She was by herself. She went through training, but she's never had a call like this before in regards to having a child. So she did notify me, and I responded immediately.
At the time you responded to the scene, do you recall what information you had about the circumstances?
So before I exited my vehicle, which I arrived prior to the on-call deputy, all I had was that it was a 606-year-old male who was found deceased at the scene.
When you go into the scene, do you coordinate that portion of it with law enforcement?
That's correct. We always make sure law enforcement has been inside, that they're allowing us to enter the scene. So the scene is law enforcement's responsibility. They have jurisdiction of the scene.
And in the case of Alexavier, were you allowed onto the scene?
Correct.
Specific to Alexavier's death, what did you do on scene that day?
So first, exited my vehicle. Once my on-call deputy got there, I explained to her, since she has never had this type of scene before with a child, that I was going to take lead. I made contact with, I don't know if he was investigative sergeant time, but he's now Investigator Williams, who then told us a little bit about what we were going to go into. And then we proceeded to walk into the scene. We took pictures throughout the entire residence. And then I proceeded to do a full head-to-toe assessment of Mr. Pedron.
And generally, what were your overall observations about Alex that day?
Immediately upon entering, I walked into the residence and noticed him on the floor. He had a significant amount of black tarry substance that was consistent with what I've seen in the past as blood. But I also noted immediately that he had several contusions on his face, is what I was able to see at the time before we did a full body assessment.
You did do a full body assessment?
I did.
And law enforcement was present for that?
Correct.
I believe your testimony was that you took photos in the whole house. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 200. Before I ask you any questions about this, I just want to let me know if you recognize what I'm showing you.
I do recognize this, yep.
Your Honor, I request to publish Exhibit 200 again.
No objection.
Go ahead.
Ms. Levinsky, can you tell me what we're looking at in this photo?
So this is a picture I obtained in the kitchen as you're about to go through what I believe is a small little hallway. On the cart is items of bananas and apples and garlic and squash. But what I'm taking picture of is more specifically the food that's there, and in the middle of the cart, is, it looks black, and those were several day-old bananas.
Did you make any observation about the fruit in that cart?
Yes, I noted that they were significantly old to the point of past ripeness, and there was also fruit flies in the area. Don't know if they were coming from the bananas or the apples themselves.
Could you smell anything?
Yes, you could smell an odor of what I would describe as rotten fruit. There's also just a general odor in the area.
Thank you. Did you make a decision about whether or not to send Alex's body to autopsy?
Yes, I did. I made the decision to send them to autopsy.
And did that autopsy occur on Monday, the 13th of February?
That's correct.
Did you attend that autopsy?
I did.
Did you speak with the pathologist who was doing that autopsy?
I was directly in the room while the autopsy was performed, so I had a direct contact with the pathologist at the time.
Did you, I believe it was your testimony that part of your job is to issue death certificates, correct?
That's correct.
And can you tell me a little bit about what that process is?
Yep. So what happens with that is once a decedent is released to a funeral home, creates a death certificate on it's a state website. It's called SIVRIS. It stands for State Biorecord Information System. They fill in the demographics in regards to last name, first name, mother's maiden name. Then they send it to us. We fill out the manner and cause of death, and then we send it back, and it's approved by the state.
And so this is something you get from the funeral home?
They start it, and then we finish our portion, which is the manner and cause portion, and then once we sign off, it goes to the state approves it, and then it would go to the Register of Deeds.
When the funeral home is starting this process, is that because they're at that point dealing with the body, the autopsy is done, that sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay.
They don't start a death certificate process until the decedent, the body, is in their custody and it's been released from our office.
So you have to sign or indicate that you've released it?
Correct. So the funeral home has to come to our facility, which we're lucky enough to have a morgue. We have to sign a morgue transport form stating that they're released to a funeral home, and it has to be a funeral director that picks them up.
Are there time limits related to when you have to issue that death certificate?
Yes, according to the state of Wisconsin, we have to follow state statutes, and the state statute is 69.18 that reports I have 6 days to complete a death certificate once it's created by a funeral home. With completion of the death certificate, it doesn't mean the final. It's either I put the final or I have to put pending within 6 days.
So if you don't have a manner and cause of death yet, you put pending, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there then a process for changing that once you do have some certainty about the manner and cause of death?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And what is that process?
So once we put a pending cause and manner of death on a death certificate, it does go to the state to be approved, so that way the family could get certified copies if needed to state that it's pending. They need that for like insurance purposes. But what happens on our end is it goes into a work queue of ours, and it stays in there until I go in and click a button that says CME death amendment. And then once I click that button, I have to list why I'm amending the death certificate and then go in and change what I need amended.
Specific to this case, do you remember when approximately you issued Alex's death certificate?
Are you allowed to clarify if the first one or the second one, hon?
So we'll start with the first. There were more than one?
Correct.
Okay. We'll start with the first.
So the first death certificate I created for Mr. Pedrin was a pending death certificate, and that would have been on, I believe, March 6th of 2023. I don't know the exact time.
Did or had your office received the final autopsy report from the pathologist at that time?
Not at that time.
So did you list a manner or cause of death on that pending death certificate, or the first one that you issued?
For the first one, for the manner, I clicked the box that states pending, and then underneath where we normally have the final, I listed pending autopsy results with a time frame of immediate, just because you have to put a time frame in there, and then I sent that off.
Do you recall approximately when you received the final autopsy results?
I believe the final autopsy results were submitted to our office and to our program on May 17th of 2023.
And do you know if you then ever amended Alex's death certificate?
I did amend it, correct.
Okay. Do you know approximately when you amended it?
Yep, I amended it June 28th of 2023.
And at that point in time, did you have the manner and cause of death as identified by the pathologist?
Correct, yep.
Do you remember what you documented as the manner and cause of death?
For the manner, I did list it as homicide per what was advised by the pathologist. And then the cause, there's two sections to a death certificate. The first half is what directly caused his death, which was blunt force trauma due to homicidal assault. And then on the bottom, there's a contributing portion, and I believe I put toxic effects of alprazolam.
When you listed the blunt force injuries, I think you said due to homicidal assault, is that correct?
Correct.
Why did you put that specific listing there?
So with the state of Wisconsin, they're very particular in how death certificates have to be created. So if you put blunt force trauma or blunt force injury, you have to indicate what the cause was. So for example, if it was a motor vehicle collision, I'd have to put blunt force trauma due to motor vehicle collision. So for Mr. Pedrin's, I opted homicidal assault due to the fact that the pathologist ruled it a homicide, and assault generally in our world encompasses everything. So I can't specifically say if it was by someone's own hand or if it was by an object, but an assault just encompasses it all.
And do you know approximately when you amended that death certificate?
That death certificate. So for example, if it was a motor vehicle collision, I'd have to put blunt force trauma due to motor vehicle collision. So for Mr. Pedrin's, I opted homicidal assault due to the fact that the pathologist ruled it a homicide, and assault generally in our world encompasses everything. So I can't specifically say if it was by someone's own hand or if it was by an object, but an assault just encompasses it all.
And do you know approximately when you amended that death certificate?
That death certificate would have been amended June 28th of 2023.
And when you amend the death certificate, does it change the issue date on the death certificate?
Unfortunately, it does not. So the issue date goes back to when I first signed the first death certificate in March.
So even with that amendment, the death certificate on file now would be dated March of 2023, is that correct?
Correct.
Even though back in March of 2023, you didn't have that final autopsy report?
Correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Ross?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As you indicated, you signed the death certificate in this case, correct?
Correct.
And you filled it out without directly consulting with Dr. Quinton about the specific language. Is that right?
In regards to specific language, I did not communicate with Dr. Quinton.
Okay. And in that document, you used the phrase, you state that Alex Xavier received fatal injuries from homicidal assault, correct?
Correct.
And those were your words again, not Dr. Quinton's.
Those are my words exactly, but it's based off the autopsy and what Dr. Quinton puts in the final cause of death portion of the autopsy.
And you're aware that Dr. Quinton did not conclude that Alex Xavier definitively died from a homicidal assault, correct?
According to the information he provided us on the form, he reported the manner as homicide with direct cause of blunt force trauma with contributing factor of toxic effects of alprazolam, which would indicate the top portion is what caused the death according to the report that we were provided.
And if he indicated that either of those contributing factors could have been interchangeable, essentially, you wouldn't be aware of that because you didn't discuss that with him?
If he believed alprazolam would have been the direct cause, it would have been in the top portion of the cause of death sheet that were provided.
Now, homicide can include many different things, right?
Correct.
Intentional acts, reckless acts, negligent acts.
Correct.
And you didn't just write homicide, right?
Correct.
You wrote decedent received fatal injuries from homicidal assault, correct?
Correct.
Now that language suggests that the child died from the physical injuries directly.
Correct.
Now at that time, you had toxicology results that showed an extremely elevated level of alprazolam, correct?
Correct.
2.5 times the level that's fatal, toxic for adults, is that right?
I would have to look at the number, but I'm not sure what the number was.
You didn't know that he had more than the toxic level of alprazolam in his system?
I knew he had more than the toxic level, but I don't know if it was 2.5 times. I'd have to look at the number again.
And you understood, presumably, that that level alone could be fatal, right?
Yes.
Now, the autopsy was performed by Dr. Quinton, as you indicated.
Correct.
He's a medical doctor,
Correct.
and he specializes in determining cause of death, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And he performs autopsies regularly, correct?
Correct.
And you don't perform autopsies, right? That's not something that's within your qualifications.
No, we don't perform, but we attend them.
Okay. And you indicate your training, it says a paramedic treating living patients, correct?
Yes and no.
In terms of treatment, it would be with living patients and not determining cause of death, correct? That's not something a paramedic does.
We treat living patients, but when someone's in cardiac arrest, we have to try to determine what caused the cardiac arrest to try to reverse it.
Now, you relied on Dr. Quinton's findings in determining what you would put on that death certificate, correct?
In the end, ultimately, yes.
And he's the one who's qualified to make that determination, correct?
In regards to the autopsy, correct.
Because you cannot independently determine cause of death without Dr. Quinton or a pathologist, right?
Not in Mr. Pedrin's case.
Now, Dr. Quinton determined that the manner of death was homicide, as we've discussed. In medical terms, that does not mean intent to kill. Is that fair?
It just means that it's death caused by another individual.
Dr. Quinton did not use the phrase homicidal violence, did he?
I don't believe so in the report, but I know there was discussion about that during the autopsy itself.
And he did not use the phrase homicidal assault, did he?
No.
And if he testified that he would not have used that language, would you disagree?
Your Honor, I'm going to object.
Open testimony.
That she hasn't seen or heard or knows the context of, Your Honor.
Okay, sustain.
Are you aware that Dr. Quinton does not believe that someone must have intended to kill Alexavier?
Objection.
I don't know if she might be aware, overruled if she can answer it.
Can you repeat the question?
Are you aware that Dr. Quinton does not believe that someone must have intended to kill Alexavier?
I'm not aware of that.
And so are you aware that he testified that one rational interpretation of the evidence would be that the person who caused the injuries here did not intend to kill him?
Again, Your Honor, objection. She's being asked to comment on testimony that she hasn't heard or seen.
Okay, sustain.
So it sounds like you just didn't talk with Dr. Quinton about his beliefs in this regard.
I had direct conversation with Dr. Quinton during the autopsy process.
And you never talked to him after that, or? You must have talked to him before you signed the death certificate, right?
So what happens with the autopsies is they send us their findings, and then we take what their wording is and put it on the death certificate. But we have to add, we have the right in Wisconsin to add things, because in Minnesota, they have to write their death certificates differently than in Wisconsin. So in Minnesota, Dr. Quinton may be able to put blunt force trauma, but in Wisconsin, I have to put a reason for the blunt force trauma.
Okay. But it sounds like you did not consult him before adding the language, right?
Ultimately, the death certificate language is, the death certificate, the language can occur based on what we believe. He doesn't have a say in regards to what the language is.
Sure. Now, you did know about these elevated drug levels, right?
Correct.
And you knew that overdose was a real possibility, correct?
We were aware that there was elevated drug levels high enough for an overdose, which we put as contributing factors per the report that was provided to us by Dr. Quinton.
Now, in your role, you're supposed to consider all available evidence, is that right?
Correct.
Including evidence that contradicts your conclusion, correct?
Correct.
As part of making an accurate determination.
Correct.
And good forensic practice requires evaluating competing explanations, right?
Correct.
And not just selecting one interpretation, right?
Correct.
And here you had evidence of a potentially fatal drug toxicity, right?
Correct.
And a pathologist who could not rule that out as a cause of death, right?
Correct.
And yet your death certificate does not reflect that uncertainty, does it?
So the death certificate reflects what were provided by the pathologist in their report. So Dr. Quinton's report that he provided to us states, number one, blunt force injury, and then contributing factor, toxic effects of alprazolam.
And it says homicide.
It does, correct.
Doesn't say homicidal violence.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to asked and answered.
Overruled.
It does not say homicidal violence, but in,
It doesn't say homicidal assault, does it?
no.
Now, you know Jenna Love, Alexavier's mother?
I'm aware of who she is, correct?
You went to high school together, it sounds like?
We went to high school, correct?
And you're connected on social media, is that right?
That is not correct.
Take that up with a different witness. So once you believe this was intentional homicide, you never revisited that belief, right?
I guess I went into the scene believing it was a potential overdose. And then per the autopsy results and the other findings, then it was determined it was homicide. That doesn't state, my statement on the death certificate does not state if it's intentional or if it's accidental, or it just states as homicide.
It certainly expresses more certainty than if you're reading it at the public, you would interpret that as being fatal injuries, right? You basically said that the fatal injuries caused the death, right?
Correct.
So you added words that Dr. Quinton wouldn't have used, right?
Correct.
Speculation.
I think you can base that on the report. Go ahead.
You answered, was that correct?
I added words. I'm not sure if he would have ever added words, but I did add words.
And if he testified that he would not have added those words?
Objection, Your Honor.
If he testified, go ahead.
If he testified that he wouldn't have added those words, this would be language that he wouldn't have used. Is that fair?
If he testified that.
And your wording emphasizes violence and assault rather than uncertainty, correct?
Correct. The only other way that we could have put it would have been blunt force injuries due to homicide. And then Wisconsin would have come back and said, can you explain additionally what type of homicide?
There was some testimony about a food cart that you had been shown a picture of at the residence. Is that right?
Correct.
And there was discussion about bananas that were old and not as ripe or maybe overripe. Is that right?
Correct.
Those are good for making banana bread, right?
Overripe bananas are good for making banana bread, but in my opinion, these bananas were beyond that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Levinsky, what high school did you go to?
I went to La Crosse Logan High School.
Did you also go to high school with Josie Dykeman?
I believe she may have been a couple years younger than I was.
Fair to say when you grow up in this area and then work in this area, you're going to come into contact with former peers that you may have gone to school with?
That is correct.
When a relationship is that dated, does that have any effect on how you do your job?
No.
If you were concerned that a relationship could affect how you do your job, what's your process for handling that?
If I was concerned, then what happens is I would call my chief deputy medical examiner, explain the situation, and they would take over in regards to my position.
Did you have any concern related to that with this case?
No.
If you have uncertainty about a cause of death, after an autopsy is performed, is there a way to indicate that on a death certificate?
Yes, there's a way.
Okay. But typically, or how would you do that?
So there's two different ways. If there's uncertainty, and they went to autopsy, the pathologist and myself would determine it's undetermined as a manner undetermined for a cause. If there was nothing, like, if I wasn't understanding what the pathologist was saying based on the report that was provided to me, I have a way to contact the pathologist again and ask questions.
Is there any way for you, if there's more than one potential cause of death, to put both of those on the same line?
They wouldn't be on the same line, but it'd be, there's 4 lines in the top portion, which is what directly caused the death. And those are numbered, I believe they're actually lettered 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. And if we felt that 2 things contributed, we would put both of them on there.
Both of them on,
One would be A and one would be B, with A being the one that caused the death, most likely to cause the death directly secondary or due to what would be listed below it.
and you reviewed the autopsy report prior to completing the death certificate in this case, correct?
Correct.
And was the blunt force trauma listed first in that autopsy report?
In the autopsy report, blunt force trauma was listed under 1A.
And below that, did it list that the toxic effects of alprazolam contributed to the cause of death?
So 1B, 1C, and 1D were blank, and then there's a spot where it says 2, which is the contributing factor portion of the death certificate, and that's where it had the toxic effects of alprazolam.
So based on the information you had in June of 2023, that's what's decided how you ordered those causes of death. Is that correct?
Correct. The only thing I added was the homicidal assault.
Okay. And that's something that the state requires, correct?
The state requires a reason for that to happen. So again, the example I use, if it was blunt force trauma from a motor vehicle collision, I have to put blunt force trauma from motor vehicle collision. If it's, for a natural example, if someone dies of a heart attack, I have to put myocardial infarction due to, and then if they have like high cholesterol, I have to put hyperlipidemia or high blood pressure, hypertension. So I have to put a cause, a reason of what caused that.
And that's the state of Wisconsin. That's not you making a judgment about the circumstances related to the death.
Correct. That's the state of Wisconsin. If the state doesn't like how a death certificate's created, they then reject it to where we have to add words to explain what caused the original problem.
So by putting homicidal assault related to those blunt force injuries, you're just trying to indicate that the injuries occurred by a person and not through a mechanism like a motor vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any Recross?
Briefly. This was a complex case, right?
Correct.
And you indicated that you were free to talk to Dr. Quinton at any point you wanted to, right?
Correct.
You didn't talk to him about the language on the death certificate.
We generally don't discuss the language on the death certificates.
We had talked about your connection to Ms. Love on social media. You recall that?
I remember you asking the question.
And if I were to represent to you that we have a screenshot that would indicate you are in fact friends on Facebook, would you disagree with that?
If you have a screenshot, I have hundreds of friends on Facebook, and I wouldn't be able to remember anyone. I could have added it right after high school. I don't know.
You do remember Jenna Love, though, right?
Correct.
And Josie, she went to Central, not your high school. Is that right?
I'm not sure where Josie went to school exactly.
Thank you.
Any
Your Honor, can I publish this just for the record so that it's in the record?
publish what?
The Facebook connection.
Don't think it's relevant at this time, Judge. She
Okay, you're released from your subpoena.
Thank you, sir.
With that, we'll end with testimony for today. We'll start up. Thank you so much for bearing through all this. We're getting there. We'll start up again tomorrow, same time, 8:30. See if we can start up earlier. We'll try. You know what? I'm going to just tell you right now, we do have some things to discuss, so it's going to be closer to 8:45, might be a little later, just something that we need to resolve. So if you want to come a few minutes later, that's fine with me. But we'll try to aim for 8:45, okay? All right, we'll see you tomorrow. So I sort of pushed that issue off till tomorrow, partially because you said there was a thumb drive of some sort. Either one, we can do it as an offer proof tomorrow morning, and so we can get it on the record and talk about whether it has an effect. I obviously want the state to take a look at it. And then there was other, some of it was based on the testimony of Brantley. I understand. We can talk about that tomorrow morning. I don't want to do it right now. We've had a long day. So get here at 8:30. We'll talk about what that may or may not have an effect on. But does that sound fair, a way to approach it from the state's perspective?
Judge, I think so. I just got the flash drive a little while ago, so I don't really know what it contains.
Okay.
They're very brief recordings.
They're very brief?
Yes.
Okay. Well, either way, we'll take a look at them.
Can I just have the defense put on the record what the accusation is relative to the recordings?
There's audible responses that precede the response of the witness that are spoken into the microphone or otherwise caught on audio for everyone to hear on that broadcast.
So the accusation is that I or someone at this table is giving an answer to the witness up there through my microphone?
Don't know.
I just want to make sure I understand it correctly, because Attorney Zacher was in front of me when the witness was testifying. I don't know how the witness would have seen me.
Attorney Zacher missed getting called an F word, and everybody else heard it, so, sometimes these things are missed. You can recognize if it's your voice.
I will, but I'm just curious if the judge couldn't hear it and no one else could hear it, how did the witness hear it, is my question, because I'm quite certain someone would have brought it to the attention. But we can deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's deal with it tomorrow. Let me also just say, the F-word issue, that you thought the witness said it, that you thought MF actually was.
It was just F, as far as I can tell, but yeah, an F-er, but.
F?
That's contained in the,
It's
the offer of proof as well. It was, I'll just say this, we're all adults. He appeared to call me a fucker. I think I said motherfucker earlier, but yeah.
All right. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened in a trial, but let me just say that I'm not sure what that really indicates. If that's really what he said, I'll be frank. I'm not. I think we took a. All right. Let me just see what the clip says, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and obviously we'll want to make an offer of proof with respect to to Bradley's testimony today.
Okay. Okay. Anything else we need to do tonight from the state's perspective?
Judge, I do want to just briefly address, so there was a question posed to Brantley when he came in about whether or not he said sorry to his dad when they were out in the hall. We were actually downstairs, but we got a text message from the advocate indicating that he did apologize, and we asked to separate the two immediately as soon as we found out about that. So, and then because I knew there would probably be a concern raised by the defense, we asked Mr. Pedron to sit out for the remainder of his testimony.
Yeah, and I should indicate, I think the latter half of that testimony, Mr. Pedron was not in the courtroom. One other question I have for the state, where are we at with witnesses tomorrow?
Our hope is that we can rest sometime Friday. I don't know if it'll be Friday morning or afternoon. A lot of it will depend on the length of cross, but we're getting close.
I mean, taking 5 more witnesses, 4 more witnesses?
I don't remember the exact number, and we go back and game plan every night to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say, I don't want to give you a number because if I'm wrong, then everyone's going to be mad.
Mostly me, Judge.
Okay. The goal is Friday. That's what the goal
Friday.
is. So the reason I say that is that, is there any, let's say they rest Friday before noon.
I'll have some short witnesses available on Friday if that's fine.
Okay.
And the other thing I just want to add is we have actually accomplished some of the defense's case in our case. They've gotten in some of the other acts. I don't know if they're going to present more of that, but we're also going to stipulate to a forensic interview of one of the other children that in our case. And I think otherwise the defense would have been presenting that. We may present, there's a recording of a doctor that's now deceased. We may present that in our case. So we're accomplishing things that would also be in the defense case too, which I think is important.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. I mean, what I'm hoping is that we're able to, next week, obviously be fully into the defense case. Any luck with the doctor being more available?
The Wednesday next week is what we've got, and I think just given the anticipated evidence, I think we're going to go through at least Wednesday.
Okay, all right. And it all depends if there's rebuttal witnesses or not. It would be nice to be, I'll just say this, I'll tell you my hope and dreams, is that Wednesday morning, we do jury instructions and final and closings Wednesday, or I say that Wednesday. I said that wrong. Thursday, we do instructions and closing arguments Thursday. If there's time, have them deliberate Thursday, but obviously maybe come back on Friday and deliberate. We have both days open. That would be ideal. A judge can dream. Anyway, so that's what I would like, because obviously I want to give the jury plenty of time to make a decision. Obviously, we can make accommodations if they're not able to come to that decision on Friday, but there's ways to make accommodations for the next week for deliberating. It's not easy, but we'll figure it out. But I don't want the trial to go into that period. That's what I'm trying to say. It's that I want it to really be done next week. So, having said that, I'm not asking you to figure that out right now, Mr. Zacher. Obviously, you'll have to see where we're at that point.
Sure.
Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30.
Thank you.